Welcome back to your live continuing coverage of Toy Fair 2016 here at the Jacob K. Javits Center in New York City. I'm Michael Artsis. You are the Terrifics, and we are joined by a very special guest right now. I am so excited. At BeTerrific TV on social media, and you can reach out to us on email. We love your feedback. Connect@beterrific.com. All right. This gentleman is a toy Hall of Famer. He is a legend in the toy business. He's worked for so many great companies. He started his career with Mattel and then went to a little company called Sega, which took on Nintendo under his helm. And these days, he's a board member at Leapfrog, among other things that he does. Tom Kalinske, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be with you
again.
It's
great to have you here. What's it like being a legend in the toy industry? Because we were just talking off camera about Joe Montana and some athletes that are great, but realistically, you are the Joe Montana of the toy industry.
Gosh, don't tell Joe that. Well, when I'm here at Toy Fair, all of the guys who are my age know me. All of these young kids out here don't have a clue who I am or what I've done. So I have to act like a spy to go around and go into their booths and see what they're up to. But the bigger companies, the older companies, of course, I have a lot of friends here, and it's really great for me to be here because I know people in most of the larger companies, the older companies, and it's just wonderful to reconnect.
This is your 45th Toy Fair.
It's my 45th Toy Fair, and boy, has it changed.
Tell me, first of all, when you did your first Toy Fair, you were with Mattel.
Yes.
Tell me how it's changed.
Well, first of all, Toy Fair was not at Javits.
Yes.
Toy Fair was at the Toy Building at 205th Avenue, and it was also, there were a few private showrooms, not too many. Mattel had one at 2 Penn Plaza. Hasbro had one on 23rd Street. And the presentation to the buyers, we would get the buyers in literally all day. They couldn't go anywhere else but 2 Penn Plaza. We'd present the product line to them for 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And a lot of times the marketing people, along with, we hired actors and actresses from off-Broadway productions who weren't doing anything, or from whatever, a lot of actors and actresses in this city. We'd hire them to make the presentations because they were so good at it. And then we'd take the buyers into little booths and we'd sit down and write real orders with them. No one writes an order here at Javits today, but in those days they wrote real orders. And then Mattel was so powerful that many times the salesman and the buyer would go to see the senior VP of sales or the VP of sales, and the VP of sales would say, that order isn't good enough, and tear it up and make them start over for another 3.5 hours. So the power in those days rested with the big manufacturers. That's not the case today. The power rests with the consumer.
Wow, very, very interesting and very cool. And then I think it went to, at some point, the New York Coliseum and then came here.
Yeah, it went to the Coliseum for a while. The 205th building was still quite popular, but a lot of the companies that sell primarily to the independent toy stores, they went to the Coliseum. And then more recently, of course, the 205th building has been turned into condominiums. So all of the companies are either here or in showrooms nearby here.
Right. And it's unbelievable. And I heard that the Javits is going to have another 1 million square feet added, and they can't wait because they're busting at the seams.
Yeah, as you can see out here, I mean, it's too crowded. I mean, there's a lot of companies, an awful lot of people that want to attend this show. Plus, they just opened up something called Play Fair at the other end, where their parents are bringing the children in to play with the product. So they need more space.
Play Fair is amazing. It's going to be its own event. It's going to be extraordinary in the future. It was amazing this year. What a great response. We got a lot of people in the Slack chat already waiting for you. They put up pictures of Sonic the Hedgehog. They put up their Sega Dreamcast with Sonic 10-year anniversary on it. And I believe that now Sega or Sonic is 25 years old?
We're celebrating Sonic's 25th anniversary, and I say we because it's everybody who in the past was connected with Sonic or in the present is connected with Sonic. We're all in love with the fact that it's Sonic's 25th anniversary, and a lot of celebrations are going on around the world about that.
What a great game. All right, we're going to talk a lot about Sega, or a little bit about Sega, but let's talk about some other things first and get back to it. We'll save the Sega stuff for a little while and the console wars stuff and all that. I'd like to ask you about some of the projects you're working on now. You're a board member of Leapfrog.
Yes.
It's a great company. They make some really great stuff to educate children. They call it EdTech, education technology. My son has some Leapfrog products. Also, I should note that Vtech and there's been an offer for the two companies to kind of come together. I know you probably can't talk that much about it, but this is on the table.
Yes, it is. Vtech made an offer to acquire Leapfrog, and one of the reasons is, of course, because the tablet market in the United States and Europe changed, and there's really probably too many tablets now, and so we need to get down to a fewer number. And Leapfrog, of course, makes, in my opinion, the best educational content in the world. We work with world-renowned professors. All of our content is vetted by, again, this group of professors. And so it makes sense for Vtech to want to acquire Leapfrog at this time.
Vtech's a very good, very strong company in the child play space with electronic and technological toys for kids. They make some electronics for adults too, phones and the such. But Leapfrog is just such a leader and an innovator in the space of being able to make these tablets for kids that you can get the right age appropriate, and it's never too far. It's never like, oh, well, they can do too much with it. It's always the right thing. And how has it been working with Leapfrog?
Oh, it's been wonderful. It was founded by a friend of mine named Mike Wood back in '96, and I went in as CEO. I was part of Knowledge Universe at the time, and we basically bought a significant majority stake in the company. And Mike stayed on as president and chief creative officer, and the two of us worked together for a long time and really worked on developing this, what we call the learning path for every child. And we're one of the few companies in the world that has a scope and sequence for a child from when they're literally a baby through age 8 on all the different things at the different times of their lives that they should be doing next, and to keep advancing them, whether that's in learning how to read or learning numeracy and math or learning science or soon to be learning other subjects that are very topical.
That's awesome. That's really great, and I think it'll only get better if the relationship goes through, and if not, it'll still only get better.
Right. So long as the company survives, it should only get better.
Yeah, that is great. I'm going to show you something real quick. We've got one of our viewers put a picture of himself in Sonic's head. His name is CJ. He's from Texas.
Oh wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I thought that would be cool.
For a minute, I thought it was Al Nielsen, but I guess it's CJ.
Very, very cool. And so, do you get everywhere you go when people find out that you're Tom Kalinske? Because they might not know what you look like. When they find out, do they start talking to you about Sega memories?
Yes, I get an awful lot of that, and I tweet, and so I get a lot of incoming tweets asking me questions about the old days of Sega, and those I can answer. When they ask me about the current days of Sega, I'm just like anybody else. I'm not connected with the company longer.
All right, I'm going to make them wait a little bit longer for Sega stuff. Okay, there's so much to get to on that. But you're also working with the Woodrow Wilson Foundation. Right?
I am. I'm on the board of the Woodrow Wilson Foundation, obviously founded many, many, many years ago. And the goal of the Woodrow Wilson Foundation is to make teachers better teachers and to produce actually better professors of education. And so it's a really great organization.
I love anything that's focused in education, anything that is going to further children's education, but also really stimulate and engage them. And I feel like that's the most important aspect.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what Leapfrog has always worked to do. You got to engage the kids, and then they're learning through being engaged, and they don't necessarily realize they're learning.
Yes, absolutely right. If you can have them having so much fun and involvement with what they're doing, whether it's a video game or many other educational products here and educational board games here, that's a wonderful thing. Keep them involved and keep them learning, but having fun while they're doing it. They're much more likely to retain it.
Woodrow Wilson, the 28th President of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And he died in 1924. So.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the people watching probably don't know that much about Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the foundation was formed because he was very interested in education, and actually, it really got going at World War II. Because think about what happened at World War II. After the war, we had all these veterans coming back to the United States, and we, as a country, promised them the opportunity to go to college. There wasn't enough professors to deal with this influx of. So the Woodrow Wilson Foundation was very responsible for very quickly getting professors up to speed so that they could, and getting more professors developed by different universities so they could deal with all these incoming GIs and get them a college education. That was really the start of it. It's changed now, of course, to improving the skills of teachers and professors.
Very cool. You're working with Gamezillion?
Gazillion.
Gazillion.
Gazillion Games.
Gazillion Games.
Yeah, I'm on the
Thank
board
you.
of Gazillion Games.
Sorry, Gazillion Games. So Gazillion Games is a gaming company that's making games for PCs right now.
Yeah.
But you're going to start doing consoles and mobile.
Yeah, the main Gazillion product right now
When do
is
you sleep,
Marvel.
by the way?
I don't sleep, Michael.
Yeah.
No, I just come here to talk to you.
No, but I'm serious. You don't get a lot of sleep, do you?
No.
Is that the
No.
secret to success? Is
Well,
just you have to keep working hard and not sleep? Seriously, because I feel that way.
It seems to be, yeah. It seems to be. If you got to get by on 4 hours of
I was
sleep
gonna
a
say
night.
4 hours. Is
Yeah,
that what you do?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Wow.
But Gazillion's a great Marvel game
Yeah.
on the PC. Very big game. Very, very big game. But it's changing now to also become soon available on console and eventually mobile.
Are you surprised how companies can come kind of out of nowhere these days, like Angry Birds, and just blow up?
Absolutely, and also every time I come to this toy fair, I see some new company that's emerged because of a product that they developed or a technology they have, and they're going to be successful.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing. That's what I love about this industry. What other industry can you find startups from young entrepreneurs where one year they're searching for funding and the next year they're successful and Walmart can't buy enough of it?
Well, look at Spin Master. Look at how
Great
they
example.
did with Paw Patrol. And I mean,
Great
in 2012, they come out with Paw Patrol, and boom. I mean, in 3 years, or in two or 3 years, they are the hottest property on
Yep.
television, the most sought after toy
Yep.
at the toy counter. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And founded by 3 guys
Yeah.
who knew each other from high school, had an idea to form a company. They still all get along, which is also amazing.
Also amazing,
And they've
yes.
built a great big company.
Yeah. An empire. It's an empire.
Yeah.
And there are so many like that. WowWee's another one.
Wowie's
You
another
know,
one.
And they started with like one little thing, and they keep
Yeah.
going and going and
Yeah.
going, and they've got the car that races the drone.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
unbelievable.
I mean, I don't want to name, I probably shouldn't, but like Cogni Toys over
Yeah.
here, they have a product that's a little dinosaur, and it's got something that's like Siri-ish built in, like Siri.
Yeah.
So you as a child ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It accesses, I don't know, anything that's in the Wikipedia, I guess. I mean, you ask it how many miles is it to the moon, and it will tell you. But if it knows your age, it will answer the question differently, either more fully or less fully.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable use of technology.
The WowWee thing is a remote control car.
Yeah.
The thing I was talking about, Rev, that will race a
Yeah.
helicopter. It has virtual weapons. It's you control it by a smartphone. It is basically taking the best attributes of RC racing and
Yeah.
the best attributes of video games and pairing them
Putting it
together.
together.
Did you
Yep.
ever see that as the future when you were at Sega? As something like that?
First of all, there was no iPhone when I was at.
I'm like,
when
did you
I
ever
was
see
at-
it?
When I was at Sega, so no, I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
But I mean, did
that
you see
coming.
like RC cars having virtual weapons and
yeah,
stuff?
actually, once smartphones came out, and once tablets came out, I've seen an awful lot of work using either the tablet or the iPhone as the input device, either to a game or to a RC car or to a drone or to other male action figures or what have you.
What was your favorite toy growing up?
I think we answered this once before. My favorite toy was erector sets. Do
I
you
think-
remember
yes,
erector sets?
yes.
With the steel and the
Yes.
screws and you pulleys and you made things, you made buildings. It was before Lego, obviously.
Yes.
And I just loved that product. And then the next product I loved was Dinky Cars. Do you remember Dinky
No.
die-cast cars? Well, they were before Hot Wheels.
Sure.
And every month, or maybe it was every week, they would bring out, every month they'd bring out a new Dinky car at the local toy store for 50 cents. And so I would run down to the store with my 50 cents to get my new Dinky car, and you only got 12 a year, but that was pretty cool.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I love Mattels. I would run down.
Hot Wheels.
The Mattels Hot Wheels, and I also love the Matchbox. And I would
Matchbox.
run
Of course,
down
I love
to the store
Matchbox,
with
too.
a couple bucks. Maybe it was $1. I don't remember.
Dollar.
And I would sit there and I'd go, oh, do I want that Hot Wheels or that Matchbox
Yeah.
or this Hot Wheels or this Hot Wheels? And I'd have to sit there and decide between the one I wanted. And I remember that vividly. It was amazing.
You should come to my basement. I've got a whole lot of Hot Wheels and Matchbox. And by the way, I have every Sega video game made during the time period that I was there.
Thank you for the invite.
You got to come next time you're in the Bay Area.
I'm booking the flight right now. Absolutely, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for that invite. That's an honor. That's a true honor. It's an honor to have you on set.
Well, thank you.
And I had to ask you that question about virtual, the virtual toys where you're doing the the RC with the virtual weapons. I thought that was interesting. It just came to me as we were talking. I want to talk about Sega.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about some of the things that I think a lot of people don't know. Like, one of the things is that you guys actually had virtual reality at Sega all the way back when you were there. Virtual reality, everybody thinks it's a new thing. It's not a new thing. I think it's coming into its own finally.
Finally, yeah. We worked really hard on virtual reality. First of all, Sega had the consumer video game division, also had an arcade division, and they were working on the arcade division, but we were working on the consumer division. And we worked with a guy who I consider one of the founders of VR, Jaron Lanier, who is also a great musician. And we worked with him on the technology. We developed a headset, and frankly, we loved it, but the problem was that because of light flickering and also the sensation that you got when you had it on, you would get either motion sickness or you were likely to fall over. So obviously we weren't able to bring it out, but we loved the technology and knew that it was going to eventually become something in the future, and I'm very pleased with what's going on.
I think some of the things that have changed are, first of all, the frame rates. You can do 60 frames a second now, which I think helps, although some content's being created in 30, which is regular video. Also, the resolution of the video.
The resolution is great now.
Yeah. I think that helps a lot. And maybe the headsets themselves, where especially, the phone that you can put in a headset is probably better than the headset you guys made at Sega back then.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. We were dealing with, imagine the kind of graphics that we had back in the 16-bit day. Nothing like the graphics that you have today. And so I see VR as being really great for games, but I also see VR as really great for education.
I think it's great for both. It's going to be a lot of fun for games, but it's going to be definitely amazing for education. And we like what we can do with it too. On the video side as a storytelling tool. I think it's going to be great for music and kind of engaging friends when you can't be with them. Is this possibly, this is sent in from Paul Dixon of the UK, one of our terrifics. He wants to know if that's possibly the headset.
That looks pretty close.
It was pretty close.
Pretty close.
That's a nice job, Paul
it's
Dixon.
one of the things, I kept an awful lot of stuff from Sega, and I'm really angry with myself for not having kept that one of the VR headsets.
Do you have one of the Sony, the Sega, like PlayStations or whatever, when Sega was going to make the PlayStation? Do you have one of those devices?
No, I don't have that either.
Did any of them ever work? Did you get games
No, we
playing?
didn't get that far, because remember, Sony was in favor of doing the combined Sega-Sony console. Sega was not in favor in Japan of doing the combined Sega-Sony
But I thought you had
console.
some prototypes or something.
We had prototypes of something called Neptune, but that was not that.
What was Neptune?
Neptune was one of the first. It was 16-bit plus 32-bit, so it was kind of a combination of 16 and 32-bit in one system.
Wow! Yeah. I know Janny's putting all sorts of stuff here in the Slack chat. These guys are really into this. Digital Phil. By the way, that was Digital Phil as a Sonic the Hedgehog, not CJ. Thank you for correcting that, CJ. These guys are all eating it up.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I just love the stories you tell. I love getting the inside baseball. A lot of it is in Console Wars. That's going to be a movie and a documentary kind of coinciding with each other. And Seth Rogen is going to be writing the script. Is that right?
Yes, and what they're trying to do is, Seth's been very busy, as you could probably tell from the movie over Christmas time, and then on the Super Bowl, I think he had 3 different commercials, and he's shooting another film now. And so he hasn't had time to write. Imagine taking the book. It's a long book. It's a big book, 550 or 600 pages, and he's got get that down to a feature film script, which is probably 220 pages. Right. So it needs a lot of work, and he hasn't had the time to do that work yet. The documentary is almost done, but they want to be able to coordinate the launch of the documentary with the launch of the film. So that'll be sometime from now.
Very, very cool. I want to remind everybody of your story. You were working for Mattel, I believe, at the time.
Yep.
You take your family on a much needed.
Oh no, I worked for Mattel.
Okay.
Then I had bought Matchbox toys out of receivership.
Okay.
Turned it around, took it public, sold it, and was on a beach on vacation.
Right. You were on a beach on vacation. Right. I thought you were actually working for somebody. No, you were on vacation.
Yeah.
You sold it and taking a
Yeah.
little break. Much needed family vacation. Your
Yep.
daughter's about 13. Is that correct at the time?
She was even younger.
8?
Yeah, 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
8 years old. For some reason, I knew in my head it was either
Yeah,
8 or
yeah,
13.
yeah.
She's 8 years old. You're on a beach in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and a couple of guys in suits show up on the beach to say you're coming with us to Japan.
Well, they asked me. They didn't
Yeah.
kidnap me. I mean,
Well, and you said no because your wife was there.
Right.
And your daughter said, Sega, you're going back. Which helped you, right?
that's pretty close. Yeah,
Yeah.
she sort of, and that was the daughter I was going to introduce you to
I'm
today.
so disappointed I didn't meet her.
And she just had to leave. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know?
I'm giving them the short
Yeah,
version,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Cliff Notes
The
version.
Cliff
'cause
Notes
we
version.
covered the whole thing in last year's interview.
Yeah,
You want to watch
yeah.
it, go to BeTerrific.com
Yeah.
and check out the interview from last year. But yeah, so that's the Cliff Notes. Then you wind up going to Japan, seeing what would become Sega Genesis, being blown away and saying, I'm in.
Yeah, so I saw Genesis and I saw Color Game Gear, and remember in those days,
Yeah.
mobile was Game Boy and it was only black
Yeah.
and white or green and white.
Oh, I love
and,
my Game Gear.
And Game Gear was full color, and so between the two, the 16-bit and Game Gear, I fell in love and wanted
that
to
was it.
join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what do you think was your proudest accomplishment at Sega?
Oh, by far, my proudest accomplishment was that we put this great team of people together, and this great team did wonderful things, very creative things, and we ended up passing Nintendo in share of market in the United States by 1994. So, I mean, to me, that was just remarkable. And by the way, a lot of those people are still around here.
Wow.
I saw a couple of them today. I was with Diane Fornacier, Ellen Beth Van Buskirk, who both were marketing people today.
How hard was it to create games back then? I watched that E.T. movie
Yeah.
on the Atari game. It's a documentary where they go into the desert
Yeah.
and they dig up the old Atari games, and they talk to a lot of the coders. And it seemed like it was such a monumental task to create these games back then.
Yeah. Well, but a good game has to have a good story, at least in my opinion.
Sure.
And so the main thing was we would storyboard the story and the visuals just like you would storyboard in the old days. I don't know if they still do a movie.
They do it, yeah.
And that's what we did with it. We'd have Bibles of the storyboarded game done, and if we liked the story, we had a pretty good idea we could turn it into a good
Wow.
video game. And then you get the artists and the programmers together, and away you go. So it is hard. It's a lot of work.
I was blown away in the Atari movie that they did $500 million in their second year, once they started blowing
Yeah.
up. So I don't know if it was necessarily their second year of business, but once they started blowing up, they did $500 million, and Viacom buys them, I think, or Time Warner. Time Warner buys them. Time Warner buys them, and I sit there and I go, $500 million back in like 1981.
Yeah.
I mean, was Sega doing that kind of money in the 1990s on video games and revenue?
Well, sure. We grew Sega in the United States from when I joined the company. It was doing maybe 72 million in the United States, and we grew it to 1.5 billion by 1993. And in Europe, it was about almost another billion, another $900 million in Europe in '93. And we were very, very successful in the video. And of course, Nintendo was just beneath us in revenue in the United States. And so the total, but you think about it. So the total industry was maybe $4 billion back then. Today it's $68 billion. It's a
know.
bigger industry than the motion picture business.
But at $4 billion, especially back then, that was
Yeah.
huge, and
It
it
was
was
huge.
like a sleeper business. People wrote off video games, oh, that
Yeah.
junk.
Yeah.
No, people didn't take it seriously.
You're absolutely right. When I tried to do the first rating system for video games, I went and saw Jack Valenti, who ran the Motion Picture Rating Association. And I said, gee, we want to use your rating system. And his reaction was just like you described. What, you video game guys? We're not going to let you use our rating system.
Well, and you had a similar reaction with CES, right? And so you created E3.
Created E3.
Yeah.
Yeah, CES treated the video game industry very poorly in those days. They had us in the very, very back. You had to walk past everything, including pornography, to get to us.
Really?
Yeah.
And then back then they had adult films.
Yeah, and then one day it was raining in the tent they had us in, and it was raining on top of my Genesis machines. And so I said, that's it. We're never coming back here again. We're going to start our own show.
Sparks coming out of them. CES is amazing these days, by the way. I don't know if you've been back, but they're a wonderful organization. And we were a media partner. But I think it's so interesting that even an organization that is so visionary as CES didn't see the vision.
Well, it's a different organization today. Right. It was sold to whoever owns it today at some point in between. So the old CES was the one I'm referring to. CES has been sold, and it's a wonderful
the CTA,
show now.
The Consumer Technology
it's fantastic now.
But it is a wonderful show now. But it's amazing that it doesn't matter. It's amazing that, like, you would think CES, especially back then, any personal electronic or any electronic device would work for CES, and they're like, video games, what's that? Forget it. Unbelievable to me. What do you think of these new consoles that are kind of half console, half PC, like Steam?
Well, it's huge. Those are huge opportunities, huge businesses. I mean, for example, for Gazillion, a huge amount of the business comes through Steam. Right. You know, and it's something different for me because I didn't have that when I was running the video game industry. But I think that Steam is very, very important to the video game industry today.
Absolutely. And you know, I think that it's so interesting. I think a lot of people are either PC gamers. There are a lot of people who are both, but I think a lot of people are either PC gamers or console gamers. I personally really like a controller. If I PC game, I remember the days of joysticks with a PC game.
Yeah, it was always harder for me too to control a PC game versus a console game, and I still would prefer console games, which is why I'm happy Gazillion's going to be moving to console games. Do you ever sit down and play like an Xbox or a PlayStation? Every now and then. Yeah. I still have both at home. I also have a Genesis still hooked up.
Do you really?
I do.
So I want to tell you what we've done since last year at our office. We started a video game show that's weekly. We have a Genesis. We also have an NES.
Yeah. I don't have one of those.
No, I bet you don't. We have an Xbox 360, an Xbox One, and a PlayStation 4, and an Atari.
Oh, wow.
And we have a big screen, like an 80-inch screen in the studio, and we play the games and do a show, and it's a lot of fun.
I'd like to do that.
You should. You should come do it.
Yeah, that sounds like more fun than what I have.
No. When I come to your coast, I'm going to come hang out at your place.
Okay.
When you come to our coast,
I'll hang out at your place.
You're going to hang out at our place and play video games in our studio and have some fun. Yeah,
that would be terrific.
We can compare some stuff too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Sure. You know, my sons play video games, so that's why we still have it hooked up.
What was that like for them? That must have been.
Well, they look at the things we did back then, and that's like, you're so technology lacking compared to what they're doing now.
Did all their friends come over and like?
Oh, sure. Sure. But today they have the microphone on, and they're playing with their friends around the country. You know.
Did you ever dream of that?
Oh, sure.
You did.
Sure, because you know, again, one of the things that we did, it wasn't that successful. We had X streaming, and we played one of the first video games. We played sports games across the country on phone lines. Wow. Now the issue was you had some latency built in. So I was once playing, when we first demonstrated this at an E3 show, I was playing with the president of AT&T, phone line, and he was in New York, and I was in Los Angeles, and we're racing Monaco GP against each other. The problem was that after one guy got further ahead, the other car would stop. You know, you had to keep them pretty close to keep the latency relevant.
I could imagine that must have been a challenge. Yeah. So you saw the vision. That's really interesting. Yeah. It's come a long way. Obviously.
It has come a long way.
Did you ever see tournaments? Did you ever think people would be playing in stadiums?
Sure. Oh, well, you know, I love Twitch TV, so I knew that people were going to watch people playing video games because we did that. At Sega, we did that. We had tournament. We had a big tournament out on Alcatraz Island for a promotion. And we had all these machines set up and all these expert game players playing one another. And the winner, of course, won a lot of money, and it was a big prize. So we knew that idea was a big idea. Now, doing it on TV, the way that it was done, we didn't imagine.
Wow.
The way it's
That's
done
pretty
today.
Interesting. Jenny writes in from Finland, Rally, Sega Rally, what a game. You have any memories of Sega Rally?
Hardly.
I've never even heard of it.
No, I've heard of it. I remember it. It was a good game. It was a good game.
I have this great memory as a kid, and I might have told you this last year. I hope I didn't. My mother did a lot of charity events for North Shore University Hospital on Long Island.
Yeah.
And one year they did an event where Marty Lyons, who was a New York Jet at the time,
Yeah.
would come and sit down and play video games with the sick children.
Yep.
And Jeff Norton, who was a New York Islander at the time, would come and play like NHL or whatever the game was at the time. It might not have been NHL. It might have predated NHL. And play with the sick children to kind of cheer them
Yep.
up. And so obviously the two athletes back then
Yep.
had no idea how to play these games. And I was the kid who had to, was
them.
recruited to teach them to play. Yeah, and I was sitting there with Marty Lyons teaching them how to play, Madden or whatever the game was.
Yep.
It might not have been Madden back then. It might have been my favorite all-time game, Joe Montana Football.
It may well have been. And by the way, we donated through the Sega Foundation a stand on wheels with a TV and a Genesis and a whole bunch of games to many, many, many children's hospitals around the United States. And it could well have been one of those things that we developed and donated through the Sega Foundation.
That would have been amazing. I hope
Yep.
so. And that's a great foundation and a great cause and a great
Yep.
thing to do. I'm glad you guys did that. Yeah, it was one of my fondest memories as a kid, sitting there with these two guys and teaching them how to play. And I don't remember the exact games. I probably was so busy going, I'm teaching Marty Lyons ABC.
Yeah, that's quite funny. Our experience was a little different. Joe would come into the development area, and the guys who were programming the game, and he'd say, no, that's not how I run that play.
Would he
Here's how you
really?
do it."
I was
Oh,
so
yeah,
curious about that.
yeah,
I'm glad you addressed
yeah,
that. He
yeah.
would really sit there and
yeah.
help develop the game.
Yeah, very nice person.
And you didn't do motion capture back then, so did he ever?
No, we didn't.
Did he
back
ever
then.
talk about how his gait was or how he walked?
Oh, yeah. We had to try to smooth that out, because he's pretty cool.
Yes, he definitely is. Even at the Super Bowl this year,
yeah.
he came out and he got some pretty big
cool.
applause. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's pretty smooth.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think that. Do you see a time where the video game and we'll be able to train athletes, and the fact that with virtual reality, I think you could get the speed. So they say that the transition from the speed to the college game to the NFL is the biggest problem for college athletes. Do you see a time where they could wear a headset and play a video game and get the game
Oh,
speed?
yeah. I think with VR, that's certainly coming. But I mean, even today, a lot of the video games are used for training in the military. I mean, there is video game technology for helping our F-18 pilots be better pilots before they go into combat. And my nephew, by the way, was an F-18 squadron commander, Lieutenant. I'll put in a plug. Lieutenant Colonel David Kalinske ran the squadron, the Blackhawks, out of Miramar and was first strike over Iraq. And
Thank him for us, please.
yeah. And he tells me that that gets them going. It gets their reflexes better before they go into combat.
I've always said this. I told you this last year. I played my Game Gear or my Game Boy on the way to hockey games.
Yeah.
And I would have better hand-eye coordination. I would sit on the train playing, and I guarantee my puck handling, my stick handling, and my shooting ability was better. My reaction times were better. Yeah, without a doubt.
Because it gets your brain in sync with
the
your
games
hands.
I didn't do it for, I didn't play as well. I had to be more physical then. I had to lay a hit. What was your favorite game on Sega?
Oh, my favorite game on Sega was Sonic 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved Sonic 2.
Why-
I still love Sonic 2.
Why does it eclipse Sonic 1?
It's just it's a better game. It's faster. It's bigger. It's harder to beat. Harder to get to the end. Yeah.
Brian's a big fan. He's got a big smile over there. He's behind the
Yeah.
scenes. You got a question, Brian? No. Any questions? We've taken up a lot of Tom's time, but it's been amazing. No questions from Brian. Let's see. We'll give the Terrifics in the Slack chat about another 30 seconds to ask a question. I see Jenny typing, and they're putting up pictures of their game systems, gaming. They've got the Game Gear. I remember that bluish, purplish button to start, and they got the Game Boy and the Lynx. Did you feel pressure from Atari Lynx?
No, not from Atari Lynx. It was good technology, but we didn't think they had enough content and were priced wrong. And so we were pretty confident we were going to be able to beat them.
I think the biggest thing was that they were priced wrong.
Yeah.
The only thing that I didn't like about my Game Gear was it ate batteries like crazy.
It does eat batteries.
Yeah.
That was an issue. We tried to get it better.
Nothing
but,
you could
hey,
do.
my iPhone eats batteries
That's
too.
true.
I can't get through a day without my iPhone going
Good
dead.
point. So Jenny wanted to know, did you enjoy playing on Genesis or Dreamcast Sonic the Hedgehog better?
Well,
I left before Dreamcast was introduced.
Okay.
So the answer is I
Genesis.
enjoyed it on Genesis.
Have you ever played Dreamcast?
I have. I don't have it at home though. Interestingly.
I was never a big fan of Dreamcast.
Yeah, but you have to understand, when I left Sega, I was hired to form Knowledge Universe, and I was CEO of Leapfrog, and I was on many 36 other companies I was involved with, and ed tech companies. I didn't have time to stay involved in video games. So there's a big portion of my life where I just was out of the video game business, and I didn't really start getting back into it until I had stepped down as president of Knowledge Universe, and I stepped down as CEO of Leapfrog in 2005. So from 2005 to now, I got a little bit back into video games.
I like how video games are like riding a bike. You can just get back on and start again, you know?
Yeah. But you can still tell by the feel of them whether it's a good game or not.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. The legendary Tom Kalinske, you are a Toy Hall of Famer. Thank you for giving us so much of your time. I appreciate it, and I look forward to doing a lot more, having you on, and maybe doing something from your place.
Great being with you, Michael.
You're the best.
Well, thank you.
You really are. Thank you so much. Wow, what an interesting guy. Digital Phil says Sonic 2 was better than number 1. I don't know. I love Sonic 1. I'm so partial to Sonic 1, so biased to it. You are the Terrifics. You make BeTerrific special. We'll be back with a whole lot more of your live continuing coverage right after this at Toy Fair 2016. Don't go anywhere.